German tight end Marlin Klein declared for the 2026 NFL Draft just a couple of days ago. The reception has been fairly mixed. A lot of people are pointing to his lack of production for the Wolverines over his 3-year college career. In 3 years, 364 receiving yard and a single touchdown. However, Marlon does have a lot of attributes that do not show up in the stats and are more reflective on the tape. That being said, let's take a look into Michigan tight end and another excellent German prospect, Marlin Klein. The level of blocking Klein shows is very promising in both the run and pass game. He has high motor and attacks the defender's hip excellently, making him very effective as a double team blocker in particular. He creates great angles in the run game with his footwork and length. This has led to a string of long touchdowns towards his side. In combination with a good pad level, he adds a lot of value to himself as a prospect to be a tight end at the next level. He is on the leaner side of 250 and does not have the strongest hands or anchoring. This is something he would need to improve on for the draft, as most of his effective blocking comes from in the trenches rather than in the open field, especially as he'll likely be starting off in special teams in his early NFL career. That being said, he does have some flashes of being able to do this very effectively in Michigan. And overall, there are a ton of blocking highlights throughout the tape. This is one of the big things that people point to with him, is his effect in blocking. Maybe he's been just a couple of catches a game kind of tight end for Michigan in their very, very run-heavy system, especially with a freshman quarterback in Bryce Underwood. And I think that this will be a key aspect that scouts will look at in the draft. These are just a few of many clips and many instances to show off his blocking technique. There are many, many more examples that I could show you. Marlon has underrated and underappreciated hands. Obviously, he didn't show a crazy amount in college, and that is why everyone was a little bit surprised when he declared. Some thought he may transfer to a school where he could be the #1 guy and develop as a receiving prospect to add to his excellent blocking. Others thought he might wait another year to have a more developed Bryce Underwood, throwing him the ball and more trust from his coordinators. However, he can track the ball in the air very well and maintains possession in the field. This is something that has been developing throughout his college career. And he is a sneaky good vertical threat because of his size and physical gifts. This is something that PFF had pointed out in our own evaluation, how he could translate to a vertical threat at the next level. Although he is not getting 4 or 5 catches a game, a selection of those catches flash the athletic ability that have earned him such a claim. Even on short yardage grabs, we can see the body control, and he's hurdling people at 250 pounds for crying out loud. If that isn't NFL level athleticism for a tight end, I don't really know what is. He's listed at 6'6" and 250 pounds, so he definitely has a frame to be an NFL tight end. If he can have a really breakout, standout combine performance, I think he'll just gradually be elevated up these boards towards being drafted. I think people at the moment do see him as a raw prospect because he's not put up the statistical output. If he runs some crazy numbers, that's fine. It doesn't matter what your production was if you've got the tools to grow into a more productive player in the NFL. Famously, Jimmy Graham only had 17 receptions throughout his entire career. Of course, he was also very, very good at basketball, which helped him. But if Marlon can put in a great performance at the combine, I don't see any reason why he can't be elevated toward those later rounds. Granted, some of these teams are looking for more polished products and they might not have the patience to develop a tight end, but he does have some intangibles you can't teach. The heart, the motor, the willingness to block, especially at the tight end, when a lot of the modern day tight ends are basically just glorified big slots. This might give him an advantage over some other prospects that are more coasting on their supreme athleticism. But if he does run a 4.4 or 4.5, then expect him to be kind of suggested in the same realm as those freak athletes, just with those additional intangibles. Can't really go wrong with that. We'll see how good he is in the combine. I would like to see him at his pro day as well. If he can run any kind of crazy numbers or get like a popping off vertical jump, he's going to just literally fly upwards. There is room to improve on the routes that Marlon runs, and there could be more pop and fluidity in and out of some of his cuts. Some of them can be a bit predictable and telegraphed, especially coming into the NFL level, where defensive backs will know every route that you can run. That being said, he can stretch the field while having the speed to get to the sidelines. There is the vertical aspect that I mentioned earlier, but he does need to improve his release off the line to reach that vertical threat potential. But there is a very good foundation. Separation is another aspect that we need to see more emphasis on if he wants to get to the next level as a tight end that could be also seen as a pass catching threat on an offense. In particular, chip block routes, they really stand out on his tape, and I was shocked that he didn't get more of the ball as often on these routes throughout the year, because this is where we see a lot of his strong points. A good chip, a catch, and a good bit of movement when he has the ball in his hands. We saw this a ton, especially in his opening seasonal game against New Mexico, and then kind of since then they didn't really seem to incorporate it much into the offense. There was moments here and there, but it was confusing to watch. I don't think this scheme really fit Klein as much as it potentially could have. This is why I think that he's a very interesting draft prospect. That being said, I think he is slightly fighting against the odds in order to get drafted in 2026. It's a very good tight end class. He's currently ranked 13th for PFF. Take that as you will, but 13 tight ends being drafted wouldn't be a crazy common occurrence. I do think that this being on the weaker side of a draft class overall does help him, especially if he does put out a great performance. Like I said, in the combine, he has the blocking tools, he has the intangibles that you can't teach, he's a good athlete. I think if he elevates himself up with a great pro day, tells coaches, tells scouts how much he's improving as a pass catcher, runs some good routes, his pro day and combine, I think we're just going to see him rise. I think he could be a bit of a riser throughout the draft period if he keeps putting on really, really good performances. I think at the moment, probably towards the 5th, 6th, maybe 7th, could elevate himself up there more. Let me know where you think he's going to go. Let me know who you want him to be on. I wouldn't mind him with the Patriots. I ain't gonna lie, I wouldn't mind. I know we got a couple good tight ends, but I wouldn't mind them. We got a nice group, and I think he would fit in nicely at the Patriots. Thank you for watching. Let me know who you want next. Be a member. It's down there. Like the video. Do that. I want to get like 10. This college one's never too crazy, but thank you for all of my members. Thank you for watching this far. See you next time. Goodbye.